What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to T3G. My name is Dalibor. This is Tech Tuesday, and today we're going to be reviewing the Canon EOS Rebel SL1. I know it's an old camera, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the whole purpose of doing this with an old camera, realistically, again, it's an SL1. I think they've got an SL2, SL3. The reason we would do this, and the reason we would talk about this, is to kind of figure out if our typical recommendation, which is the M50, would be maybe a better upgrade down the line, or even just saving those extra couple $100 just to get one of these instead. Now, the obvious downfall is I don't have a flip out screen, so I don't know if I'm in focus, but it is dual pixel autofocus, so theoretically shouldn't be an issue. It's a smaller body than like a 70D, which is what I have, so 70D, 80D, 90D, whatever, that's all gonna be the same larger body, so it's a smaller body, but it does use the standard EFS lenses. The kit lens that it comes with is the 18-55, you could get a nifty 50 for this thing. There's just a lot of options when you're on the EFS mount, because there's just so many lenses for it, right? But what we're first gonna do is we're gonna get some test footage, and we're gonna get a couple shots as well, just to see what the performance looks like. Let's go. I will say, this is nice to have something a little more capable, a little bit more capable lens, but I feel like because it's heavier, I'm not getting as steady of a hold. My M10, I feel like, is easier to deal with on this little tripod. Again, the reality of vlogging like this, the only thing you get as a benefit of vlogging this way would be the fact that you're talking to the lens, because you don't have a screen to look at, right? You're always talking to the lens unless you're looking at something else, like where you're going. And that's kind of the drawback as well, is when you start recording, you're not 100% sure because there's nothing on the front indicating that it's recording. So I would say, for practicality purposes, not probably the best camera to use for vlogging. So I'm using it as a secondary shooter for, you know, additional angles and things like that. However, I think for an up-and-coming photographer, if you're kind of looking to graduate from a cell phone or a little point and shoot, I think this is a great step up. I think for the price tag, which I think...
Alright, so I'm editing this video and I just happened to jump on and do some quick research. I'm eliminating the cost points primarily because the SL3 is $600 brand new, which is cheaper than the M50, and it has the 4K, it has the flip out lens, it has a 6-axis stabilization, and it has the EFS lens, which is the whole point that I was trying to make with the universality and having options. So we're going to continue the rest of this. Just know that the SL3, if you have $600, that might be the better choice. Maybe I'll rent one and we'll see. We'll compare it to the M50.
I actually ended up getting it on clearance at a Target for $250, if memory serves. So I figured for a secondary camera for $250, that's a hard thing to pass up. So I figured I'd get it. But I figured I want to talk about it as well because I think it is still a great camera. It is kind of all the things that are good about the 70D in a smaller package. You can take raw images, it has several different JPEG settings, so I mean, it has a ton of photo options. And then for video, like I said, if you're recording away from yourself, yeah, this is gonna work for you. Between all the air traffic and everyone deciding that dusk was when you go to the forest preserve, I guess we're doing this in the car. So what you saw there was 55mm, and that was about 4 feet away from the camera. So you're gonna get some nice bokeh with that as well. This is gonna be a great option if you're shooting short films, if you're shooting documentaries, things like that. You can get it set up in such a way that it's gonna look great. For instance, this could be something that you set up with a gimbal, so that you have your main camera at the ready, that's, you know, handheld or whatever, and then you have this on a gimbal just ready to go if you do want to get some smooth footage. Compared to the 70D, some of the access ports are moved to the side, so everything is on one side, which is nice, unless you need to plug in everything, and then it's a lot, but very rarely are you going to need to plug in everything. And you do still have that nice grip, so even though it is smaller, I don't feel like it's not in my control because I do have big hands. That was my first concern when I first held an SL. I was like, this thing's a baby. but then you get that grip and it's still pretty solid. For the photography side of things, it still has a pop-up flash, so quite honestly, I do think this is going to be a great upgrade from a camera phone or a small point and shoot. I think this is, you know, that next step up, and from there you can maybe save up for a full frame camera. I think unless you really need that 4K or you really need to go mirrorless, this is a great entry point for a lot of people. You know, if you see this sitting around somewhere and it's on clearance, and yeah, 100,000%. And realistically, I mean, that's why I got it, because it's a nice secondary camera for additional shooting and additional angles. Now, the footage that I got is not great as far as the content, because it is winter and there's not a lot of sight to be seen, and the snow is kind of gone, so there's not, like, you know, rolling snow hills. It's just kind of drab. It's just kind of colorless out, and I'm sorry about that. I live in the Chicago area, and that's pretty much what we get around this time. But the quality is solid. I think the autofocus is pretty solid. I think it adjusts to lighting very quickly. Honestly, I have nothing bad to say about this camera, besides personally I have huge hands, and that is the only thing. Like, you're gonna have a one-handed grip unless, like, the tripod helped me out in this case, because I'm holding it on a tripod and holding the camera, so I've got a two-handed grip. But yeah, if you have big hands, this is definitely going to be not the greatest feeling, so maybe like a cage or something like that would be useful in that case. Finally, I do want to talk about the battery. It is the same battery style that the M50 and the M10 have, so it's the NP6. That could be wrong. If it's wrong, I'll put it on the screen. It does also ironically line up perfectly with my plate system, so I can open the battery gate for this camera without taking it off the plate, which means that I never have to take it off the plate, which is nice, whereas the M10 I do have to take off the plate, and that's annoying. In reality, I don't have a ton to say about this camera. If you've ever used a Canon, it's a Canon. It doesn't have a ton in terms of power. It's got your basics, and again, it's a very good basic starting camera. For video quality, you have 1080p 30 and 1080p 24. You do have 720p 60. As my friend Josh says, you film it in 720, slow it down to 30 frames per second, and put a color correction on it. No one knows the difference, really. That's gonna be it. I have nothing else to say about this camera. It's good. I like it. It's a good addition to my kit, and I'm excited to make some stuff happen with it. Having an additional camera, an additional angle is always good. You know, you want the best and the most coverage you can possibly get for anything you're shooting, and yeah, I think this is gonna fit in very nicely with my system. If I said it already, I don't care. That's gonna be it for this one. Thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. It's like this is probably mostly hand in this last shot. Whatever. I'll see you guys tomorrow.